Joining me now is Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon. Congressman Bacon, it is always great to have you and to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you.
Let's start right there with these executive actions that my colleagues say President Biden is considering. Effectively, they could restrict asylum claims at the border. Of course, it comes after the Senate blocked that compromise deal with similar policies. Would you welcome that action by the president? Is that the right move?
Yes, I'm less worried about the political pros and cons, what's going to help out 2 months from now, 4 months ago. Let's fix things now. The American people want this, and it's the number one issue in our district is the border security. 7 million people have been released in the country. It's created tremendous amounts of strain in our cities. So I say, yes, take action now. We've always known the president has had authorities that he's not decided to take advantage of. And so I would move on it. But in the meantime, we've offered some legislation that would remain in Mexico, Title 42, myself and a few bipartisan colleagues of mine to help mandate some of these things. Instead of making them optional, let's mandate them. But I welcome any fixes at the border at any time.
I want to talk to you about your legislation in just a second that you're proposing, but let me just get your reaction to what we've heard from Speaker Johnson. As I just read in that statement, he called this potential executive action, quote, an election year gimmick that won't secure the border. And of course, what's notable about that, he's been the one, including on this program, calling for President Biden to take executive action, unilateral action. Do you think he's trying to have it both ways? Is he undercutting his own argument here, Congressman?
Well, I think the president is saying what Speaker Johnson was saying 3 months ago, that he could take action. The president said he couldn't, that he had to have legislation from the House. And, frankly, the president's had these authorities for 3 years, and now he's talking about doing it. That said, we can argue going backwards all we want. We want to fix problems now. And I'm more interested in solving problems for our country. And this is the number one issue facing New York, Denver, Chicago. I could go on and on. And so I think instead of pointing fingers, let's move forward. That would be my thing. But the fact is, the president just said what the speaker's been saying all along, that he could take actions right now.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge, of course, with unilateral actions, as you know, as we saw during Trump, I covered the Trump administration, they are often blocked by legal challenges. So he will take this executive action. We'll wait and see what happens. It could get blocked. That's part of the argument for why he hasn't done so far, and why he has been calling for, and a number of Republicans, your Republican colleagues, have been calling for real legislative change. But I guess the question is,
and that said, I think we should be doing legislative fixes. And there was a lot of good things that were in that Senate bill. Of course, it didn't pass the Senate. You got to get 60 votes. But there were a lot of positives that could be built on legislatively there.
Well, let me follow up with you on what you are working on, because you're working on a border bill with a bipartisan group of House members. And as you say, it has things like remain in Mexico in it. Now, of course, the challenge there is Mexico has said they don't want to work with us on remain in Mexico. The United States would need Mexico's help. But just on the politics of this, have you spoken to Speaker Johnson? Is he open to bringing this to the House floor? What do you think the reception's been so far?
We were scheduled to talk to him Thursday night, but then, as you know, the schedule changed. So I talked to his staff. The staff was optimistic. I'm not going to say they committed for him, because only the speaker can do that. But I saw a lot of optimism. A lot of the chairman of subcommittee or of the committees are supportive of this. But we got more work to do. I can't say for sure how the speaker will fall on this. I do know this. He wanted to secure the border. And by the way, Mexico will work with us on this if it's a priority of the president. President Trump engaged Mexico, and they accommodated him on this. They would do the same with President Biden if he made this a priority. But I know the speaker wants to secure the border, and he wants military aid to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. And he thought the Senate bill was too much. Our bill cuts $30 billion off of their Senate thing. So I see a lot of goodness in our compromise legislation.
Okay, well, we'll track and see what happens. As you know, the Biden administration has been working with Mexico on a range of different issues, including trying to crack down on fentanyl. But I do want to stay on foreign policy. Former President Trump, as I'm sure you're aware, again said this week that he would not honor the NATO alliance with member states that don't meet their defense spending benchmarks, basically. What was your reaction to that? What kind of a message do you think that sends to Vladimir Putin? Does that effectively invite him to come in and invade other countries?
on one hand, it could be said a lot better because I know what his goal is. He wants all the NATO countries to put in 2%. And that's what he should say. He should say it just that clearly. Now, all the countries bordering Russia are doing over 2%. They're the ones who are at risk to Russia. So when you look at all the practicality of it, the Baltic countries, Poland, Romania, so forth, they are over 2%. And they're the ones that would be most likely attacked by Russia if anything happened.
But Congressman, as you know, I mean, former President Trump said he would tell Russia to do whatever the quote unquote heck they wanted to do if one of these countries didn't meet their commitments. Do you think that NATO would survive a second Trump administration?
Well, I'm a big supporter of NATO, and I think we should be, if you have problems with a friend, you talk to them privately, right? Because I want to maintain our alliances. I see America as the indispensable nation for freedom, but we can't do it ourselves. Yeah. We have to have friends. And so I would do more to nurture the NATO relationships, Japan, future relationship with India. And I surely would not want to undermine NATO because I think our security ultimately is at stake. So I would surely recommend more diplomatic ways of going at this. But yes, we want France and Germany to pay 2%. Yeah. And that's a good thing to say. But I think it could be done much better.
Let me ask you, of course, about what has been really the top of every headline, this Alabama court ruling that frozen embryos can be considered as children under state law. As you know, several care providers in the state have now canceled IVF appointments. Do you agree with that ruling, Congressman?
Well, whether or not I agree with the ruling, I think they should modify the law because, you know, the courts are just, you know, they're representing what the law is. We want moms and dads to have children if they want to have children. And I think, you know, the in vitro fertilization, it's allowed, you know, husbands and wives that want to have children that can't to have them. And so I think the real goal here would be to modify the law that enables folks who want to have children, because I think ultimately that's the right answer.
So when you say modify the law, it sounds like you disagree with the court ruling.
I disagree with the end state. I think the court ruling is interpreting the law. So the Alabama will probably have to modify the law to make this permissible. And we would want that. We want moms and dads, or we want husband and wives, they want to be parents, to give them that opportunity to be a parent.
All right. Well, Congressman Don Bacon, as always, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.